You wake up already behind. Before you even sit up in bed, your phone is buzzing with Slack pings from the office, a calendar reminder about a dentist appointment you forgot to reschedule, a text from a friend you've been meaning to reply to, and 3 different apps telling you something is due today. You scroll for a minute, feel your chest tighten, and think the same thought you had yesterday: I don't even know where to start. For a lot of adults in the US and Canada right now, life doesn't feel like a to-do list, it feels like a chaotic group chat that never stops. Work expectations bleed into evenings. Side projects never get finished. Bills, kids' school emails, dating logistics, apartment maintenance, health appointments, everything feels urgent, and somehow, nothing really gets done in a solid, satisfying way. You go to bed tired, wired, and quietly disappointed with yourself. The Stoics lived in a different world: no Slack, no email, but the core problem they wrestled with is the same. When everything pulls at you at once, how do you decide what deserves your limited attention today? As Marcus notes in Meditations 5.20, the mind can either scatter itself across 100 worries or choose to stand firm inside one clear task. Our goal in this lesson is not to give you a perfect productivity system. It's to give you a small, reliable ladder you can grab when your brain is yelling, "This is too much." Educational content inspired by classical Stoic texts. Not medical, psychological, or legal advice. By the end of our time together, you'll walk away with 3 practical tools. First, a 3-tier triage that decides in seconds whether a demand is a real fire, a scheduled block, or something that doesn't belong on your plate at all. Second, a minimum viable win for your day, one clear outcome that makes the day count even when everything else is messy. Third, a simple nightly reset checklist that clears mental clutter and sets up tomorrow before you sleep. One more thing before we dive in: none of this requires you to become a cold, hyper-efficient robot. You can still be kind, creative, and available to people you care about. Clear triage and simple wins actually create more room for that. When your attention is not hijacked by fake emergencies, you have energy left for your partner, your kids, your friends, your faith, or just a quiet walk without your phone. This isn't a theory for monks or billionaires with assistants. We'll talk about how to use this triage when your boss in Chicago drops a quick favor at 4:45 p.m., when your co-parent in Vancouver sends a tense text at school pickup, when your dating life in Toronto collides with your project deadlines, and when your own brain sets unrealistic expectations for what can fit into one human day. So here's the roadmap. First, we'll build the basic triage rule you can run on anything that lands in your lap. Next, we'll define what truly belongs in the do now bucket so you stop treating every ping like a 4-alarm fire. Then we'll build your minimum viable win using short focus blocks. After that, we'll show how to protect your attention from digital noise and emotional overreaction. And finally, we'll put it all together in a nightly reset routine you can start tonight. Stay with me until the very end, and while you're here, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. The first move out of chaos is to stop treating every incoming demand as if it deserves the same level of attention. The simple change is this: before you respond, you run a 3-question triage in your head. Is this mine? Is this today? Is this ever? And only then decide what happens next. It matters because without a quick filter, your day gets hijacked by whoever yells the loudest, not by what actually moves your life forward. This works because your brain is terrible at holding 20 open loops at once. When you see 10 messages, your nervous system reacts as if all 10 are equally urgent. By forcing a tiny pause and sorting them into 3 buckets, you reduce threat, create clarity, and give your prefrontal cortex a chance to take the wheel. You also begin to live more in line with the Stoic idea that you can't control what arrives, only how you respond to it. Here's the line you'll use to buy that pause: give me a moment to see where this fits today, then I'll respond. You can say it out loud in a meeting, type it into an email, or just think it to yourself on the train while you scroll. That sentence interrupts the automatic "sure, I'll do it" reflex and reminds you that your time is something you manage, not something everyone else gets to spend for you. Picture someone working remotely in Denver. It's 9:02 a.m. and they open their laptop to find 3 Slack messages from a product manager, an email from their landlord about renewing the lease, a text from a sibling asking for help moving this weekend, and a notification that their credit card payment is due. Without triage, they start answering in order, feel overwhelmed, and forget the bell. With triage, they pause. Is this mine? The landlord email and credit card notice are theirs, the siblings moving logistics can be shared or declined. One of the Slack messages is a group thread that doesn't actually require a response. Is this today? The bill is, the lease renewal can happen this week, and the move can be decided by tonight. Is this ever? One of the Slack requests is a nice to have slid in at the last minute, it can be declined. Your tiny action today is simple. For the next 24 hours, whenever a new demand lands, email, text, Slack, DM, whisper the 3 questions in your head before you answer. Is this mine? Is this today? Is this ever? At first this will feel slow, but noticing how many items quietly drop away will show you how much pressure was never yours to carry. Once you start triaging, the next step is to shrink what qualifies as now. The claim is straightforward: only 2 or 3 tasks per day deserve the status of true fires, and everything else belongs in a scheduled block or a parking lot. It matters because when you treat 10 things as urgent, none of them gets your best effort, and you end the day with 10 half-finished fires instead of 2 solid wins. This works because urgency is often emotional, not logical. Your boss's slightly annoyed tone, the red badge on your phone, the fear of missing out on a social event, those sensations trick your nervous system into thinking, if I don't do this immediately, something terrible will happen. The Stoic move is to separate sensation from reality. You ask, what are the real consequences if this waits until tomorrow? Most of the time, the answer is, someone might be mildly inconvenienced, but nothing explodes. Your script for protecting the now bucket sounds like this: I can take this on, but if I do it today, this other priority will move to tomorrow. Does that still work? You can aim that at a manager, a client, or even yourself when you're tempted to start a shiny new task at 3 p.m. It forces a trade-off into the open and makes hidden costs visible. Imagine someone working in an office in Atlanta. It's Tuesday morning and they already set 2 priorities: finishing a report due tomorrow and calling the insurance company about a medical bill that's been hanging over them for weeks. At 10:15, their manager swings by with, "Hey, could you throw together a quick slide deck for this afternoon's meeting?" Old reflex, panic, say yes, and let the insurance call slide another day. New reflex, take a breath and use the script. I can do that, but I plan to finish the report and finally handle that insurance call today. If I build the deck now, the call will move again. Is the deck still the best use today? Sometimes the answer will be yes, and they consciously choose to shift. Other times, the manager will say, you know what, just give me a rough outline and we'll push the full deck to Friday. If no one else is pushing on your time, you still use the same move with yourself. When you feel the urge to clean the whole apartment instead of making a tough phone call, say out loud, if I do this now, what am I pushing into tomorrow? Hearing the trade-off in your own voice cuts through vague guilt and helps you act like a responsible manager of your day instead of a stressed-out intern. Now that you've shrunk now to a realistic size, the next move is to lower the bar for what counts as a win. The claim: design one minimum viable win for the day and give it a short, protected focus block, usually 25 to 40 minutes. It matters because waiting for a 3-hour perfect block of time is how projects die in modern life. Small, concentrated bursts are what actually move things across the line. This works because the brain resists anything that feels huge and undefined. Work on taxes feels heavy. Spend 25 minutes gathering all my tax documents into one folder feels doable. When you define a minimum viable win as one clear step that would make future you grateful, you turn a foggy obligation into a concrete action. You also get to experience completion, which calms your nervous system and builds confidence for the next block. Your script for carving out this block is, I'm giving this 25 focused minutes, my only goal is to move it one clear step forward. You can tell a partner that before you put on noise-canceling headphones, or write it at the top of a notebook page before you start working. The time box and the modest goal team up to disarm perfectionism. Think of someone living in a small apartment in Montreal. They're juggling a full-time job, an online course they keep falling behind on, and a messy financial situation. In the past, they kept telling themselves, I'll sit down on Saturday and sort all this out, but Saturdays kept filling up. With the new approach, they choose one minimum viable win for the evening. By 8 p.m., I will have logged into my student portal and listed the next 3 assignments with due dates. They set a timer for 25 minutes, put their phone on Do Not Disturb, and say the script to themselves. Maybe they get a little more done, maybe not, but when the timer ends, the win is real and specific. Over time, this practice rewires how you see progress. Instead of judging the day by whether everything got done, you judge it by whether the minimum viable win happened. Someone in Seattle might walk the dog, ride the bus home, cook dinner, and feel that old wave of "I wasted today." Then they remember, my minimum win was that 25-minute block on updating my resume, and I did it at lunch. The facts didn't change, but the story did. They're not failing, they're moving. Your tiny action today is to pick one area that has been nagging at you: work, money, health, relationships, and write a single sentence minimum viable win you can achieve in 25 focused minutes. Schedule that block in your calendar today, even if it means a later bedtime or a slightly shorter scroll through social media. The third piece of triage is learning to honor the "not now, maybe never" bucket. The claim here is that you need a simple parking lot for ideas, favors, and low-value tasks, and a respectful way to say no or not this week, so your brain stops carrying them like unpaid debts. It matters because when you treat every loose idea as an obligation, you drown in invisible to-dos that no one actually asked you to complete. This works because the mind relaxes when it knows where things live. A scattered mix of "I should start a podcast," "I promise to review that friend's business plan," and "I ought to reorganize the pantry" feels heavy precisely because it has no container. When you consciously drop some items into a parking lot list and explicitly decline others, you trade vague guilt for visible choices. As Epictetus reminds us in the Enchiridion, peace comes from focusing on what is truly ours to manage. Your script for this part sounds like, "This matters, but it doesn't fit this week. I can look at it next Wednesday," or "You can see if someone else is available what works best for you." This keeps the respect while making your limits clear. You're not ghosting, and you're not pretending you can magically stretch the week, you're inviting a real decision. Picture someone living in Chicago who is known in their friend group as the reliable one. A coworker asks them to help run a weekend fundraiser, a cousin wants help editing a grad school essay, and their own list includes repainting the bathroom and starting a YouTube channel. In the old pattern, they say yes to everything and end up half delivering on each promise. In the new pattern, they open a note called parking lot. They put YouTube channel, repaint bathroom, and fundraiser volunteer in that list with future months beside each. Then they call the cousin and use the script, "I want your application to be strong, but this week is packed. I can either give it a quick 30-minute look next Wednesday, or you can ask your professor for detailed feedback. What helps you more?" The cousin feels considered, not brushed off. Your tiny action today is to create one parking lot list in a place you actually check: Notes app, physical notebook, or task manager, and move at least 5 "I really should" items onto it. For one request you've been dodging, use the script to offer a clear "not this week" with an honest alternative. That sense of lightness is the point of the exercise. Triage and minimum wins are powerful, but they crumble if your attention is constantly shredded by digital noise. The claim here is that you need fixed response windows for email, Slack, and messaging, instead of treating every ping as a summons. It matters because context switching every few minutes destroys deep focus, inflates stress, and makes even simple tasks feel exhausting. This works because most modern communication is designed to feel urgent without actually being urgent. Red badges, push alerts, vibration patterns, they all poke the same part of your nervous system that responds to real danger. When you choose 2 or 3 response windows a day and silence notifications outside those times, you rebuild a sense of agency. You're still responsive, but on a schedule that respects your cognitive limits. As Marcus often reminds himself, you are allowed to decide what your mind attends to. Your script here is direct and non-apologetic. "I batch replies at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m., so if you message me outside those times, you'll hear back then." You can put a version of this in your email signature, your Slack status, or even as a line in a group chat description. It signals reliability without pretending you're available on demand. Imagine someone working for a marketing agency in Toronto. Their day used to look like this: open inbox at 8:30 a.m., get slammed by 40 emails, bounce to Slack when someone tags them, jump into a quick Zoom, answer a text from their partner about dinner, and then wonder why the main client proposal never moves. After a few burned-out months, they decide to experiment. They set Do Not Disturb on their phone and desktop from 9 to 11 a.m. and 2 to 3:30 p.m., reserving those blocks for their minimum viable win in one supporting task. Email and Slack get checked at 11 o'clock, 1:30, and 4 o'clock. They update their status, heads down work blocks during the morning and mid-afternoon, I'll respond to messages after 11, 1:30, and 4. At first, they feel uneasy, like they're breaking some invisible rule. But after a week, something shifts. The client proposal finally gets drafted. Their manager comments on how much clearer their work has become. And interestingly, no one complains about the response windows because messages still get answered the same day. The only thing that changed is who controls when the responses happen. Your tiny action today is to choose one 90-minute block in the next 2 days when you will silence non-essential notifications and focus on a single meaningful task. Before the block starts, tell one key person, manager, partner, or teammate your script so they know when to expect a reply. Even with triage minimum wins and response windows, there will be days when everything still feels emotionally urgent. The claim in this section is that you need a simple way to calm your nervous system before you choose your next step, especially when someone else is stressed or angry. It matters because if you let your body's panic response drive the bus, you'll overcommit, snap at people you care about, or shut down completely. This works because your thoughts are heavily colored by your physical state. When your heart rate spikes and your shoulders tense, your mind starts telling stories like, if I don't answer right now, I'll lose my job, or if I say no, they'll leave me. The Stoic move is to notice what you can and can't control. You can't control your boss's first reaction, your partner's mood, or the market. You can control the next word you say, the boundary you hold, and the task you choose in the next few minutes. Your script for these moments is simple. I want to respond well, not just fast, so I'm taking 10 minutes to think, and then I'll get back to you. You can text this, say it on a call, or even write it on a sticky note to remind yourself when your brain is spinning. It buys you a small gap between the trigger and your response, which is where your values actually have room to operate. Consider someone in a shared apartment in New York whose partner walks in visibly upset. You never have time for me, you're always on your laptop. Old pattern, feel a surge of shame, slam the laptop shut, promise an elaborate weekend getaway you can't afford, and then resent both your partner and your work. New pattern, feel the surge, take one quiet breath, and use the script. I want to respond well, not just fast. Give me 10 minutes to close this out and then we can talk properly. In those 10 minutes, they decide on one clear boundary. Friday evenings are screen-free time together, and certain work requests will be moved to Saturday morning. The conversation is still emotional, but it's rooted in choices instead of pure reactivity. The same move works at work. When a manager in Dallas messages, need this by end of day, and your chest tightens, you pause long enough to type, I can make progress today. Here's what I can realistically deliver by 5 p.m., and here's what would need to move to tomorrow. Does that still meet your need? You are still being a team player, but you're no longer letting adrenaline write the plan for your afternoon. Your tiny action today is to write the script somewhere you can see it and use it once this week when you feel cornered by someone else's urgency. The last rung on the overwhelm ladder is what you do before bed. The claim is that a 5-minute nightly reset, built on 3 simple questions, will keep tomorrow from inheriting all of today's chaos. It matters because without a clean reset, unfinished tasks mutate into a vague cloud of dread, and you wake up already behind. This works because your brain loves closure, even in small doses. When you actively close loops by acknowledging wins, parking incomplete items, and consciously releasing what no longer matters, you signal to your nervous system that the day is over. Sleep often comes easier, and tomorrow's version of you isn't ambushed by forgotten obligations. Your script for this ritual is, before I plug in my phone, I ask 3 questions: what got finished, what moved, what can die? You don't need a fancy template. You just need a consistent cue: plugging in the phone, brushing your teeth, turning off the living room light, and the willingness to be honest for a few minutes. Picture someone renting a basement suite in Vancouver. It's 10:45 p.m., they're tired, and the temptation is strong to collapse into bed while scrolling short videos. Instead, they sit on the edge of the bed with a notebook. What got finished? They write down the report they sent, the grocery run, the minimum viable win block on updating their LinkedIn. What moved? They list the email thread that advanced, the appointment they rescheduled, the conversation with a roommate that took a step toward clarity. What can die? Here they're ruthless. The idea of starting a podcast this month goes. The plan to bake for the office party goes. A half-hearted attempt at daily sunrise workouts goes, replaced with a more realistic 2 mornings a week intention. Over a few weeks, this 5-minute ritual becomes a quiet anchor. It reinforces triage because what can die keeps clearing the parking lot. It reinforces minimum viable wins because what got finished trains the brain to notice and celebrate small, meaningful steps. And it reinforces emotional control because you face what's real on paper instead of letting worry swirl in the dark. If you're worried this will turn into another perfectionist project, cap it. Tell yourself, this is a 5-minute meeting with myself, not a performance review. You can even set a timer. Many people in busy cities find that the hardest part is simply remembering to do it for the first week. After that, the feeling of walking into the next day with a short, handwritten map becomes addictive in the best way. Your tiny action today is to test drive the reset once, tonight. Choose your cue, grab a scrap of paper or a notes app, and answer the 3 questions. Tomorrow morning, glance at what you wrote before you check email. Let those few lines, not the notifications, decide what deserves your attention first. Let's pull this together with one real-world story. Imagine Jordan, a 35-year-old project coordinator living in Minneapolis. For months, their life has felt like a constant state of almost burning out. Workdays dissolve into a blur of meetings, emails, and quick favors. Evenings get swallowed by half-watched shows and scrolling because they're too wired to sleep but too tired to do anything meaningful. Every Sunday night, they make ambitious plans for the week. Every Friday, they feel like they failed. One Monday, after a rough week where they forgot a friend's birthday and paid a bill late, Jordan decides to try something different. Before opening email, they grab a sticky note and write 3 questions at the top. Is this mine? Is this today? Is this ever? Then they open their inbox in Slack. 52 messages sit there waiting. Instead of reacting, they run triage. A few items are clearly not theirs and get forwarded. Several are informational and get archived. 5 are truly theirs and truly today. Everything else gets labeled for later in the week or moved to a parking lot list. From that list of 5, Jordan chooses 2 true fires, finishing a client update and calling the doctor about a nagging health issue they've been avoiding. They define a minimum viable win for each, send a clear 1-page summary to the client and schedule an appointment, even if it's weeks out. They block off 9:30 to 10 a.m. for the client update and 2 to 2:30 p.m. for the call and any follow-up paperwork. During those blocks, they silence notifications and use the script with coworkers. I'm heads down on a deadline for the next 30 minutes, I'll respond to messages after that. The day still has surprises. A manager pulls them into an unplanned meeting, a friend texts about a minor crisis, traffic makes them late getting home. But when Jordan sits down at 10:15 p.m. with their notebook, the story of the day is different. What got finished? The client update went out on time, and the doctor's appointment is booked. What moved? A small step on a savings plan, a clearer conversation with their roommate about chores. What can die? The idea of volunteering for an extra committee at work this month, an overly complicated workout plan, a side project that doesn't actually matter to them anymore. By Friday, the external world hasn't magically changed. The company is still busy, the inbox is still full, and life still throws curveballs. But Jordan no longer feels like everything is urgent and nothing gets done. The triage questions shrink each day to something manageable. The minimum viable win gives every day a spine. And the nightly reset turns vague anxiety into a simple next step waiting on paper when they wake up. You've seen that overwhelm is rarely about how many things are in your life and more about how they all compete for your attention. We started by naming that pressure, everything feels urgent and nothing gets finished. Then we built a 3-question triage: is this mine, is this today, is this ever, to shrink the pile of demands down to what is truly yours, right now. You learn to reserve now status for only a couple of real fires instead of 10 half-hearted priorities, and to give your day a clear spine with one minimum viable win in a focused block of time. From there, we made a home for not now, maybe never items in a parking lot, along with a respectful not this week line so your yes actually means yes. We protected your focus with response windows, so Slack, inboxes, and group chats stop dictating your attention every few minutes. We added an emotional pause button for moments when someone else's urgency hits your nervous system, and we finished with a 5-minute nightly reset that asks, what got finished, what moved, what can die, so tomorrow doesn't inherit today's chaos by default. Now it's time to test this in real life. First, do today's step, write the 3 triage questions in your not this week sentence somewhere visible, and use them on at least one incoming request in the next 24 hours. Second, do today's step, schedule one 25-minute minimum viable win block in your calendar in the next 2 days, with a specific outcome written at the top. Third, do today's step, tonight, before you plug in your phone, run a quick reset by answering the 3 questions somewhere you can see it and glance at that page before you check messages tomorrow morning. If this was helpful, the next topic to explore is how to say no without guilt at work, with friends, and in dating, so your overwhelm ladder becomes something you can communicate clearly to the people around you. If you feel messages like this need to reach more people, subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next lesson.